Just wanted to take a moment to thank you for listening to SiDEBAR Forever. If you like the show, please subscribe to us at sidebarforever.com, as well as share episodes of the podcast on your social media. That way, new listeners can find us as well. Here on SiDEBAR Forever, there's nothing we love better than a good old-fashioned thriller, and the 1980s had no shortage of them. Today's episode is a playback review of the 1983 action thriller, Blue Thunder, starring Roy Scheider, Daniel Stern, Candy Clark, and Malcolm McDowell. The movie is about an air support pilot for the Metropolitan Police Department, aka Los Angeles County, who gets involved in a conspiracy while testing a high-tech combat helicopter for the military. The chopper's nickname is, of course, Blue Thunder. On the podcast, Swain and I dive into the making of the movie, discuss the acting career of Roy Scheider as the prototypical everyman, and make comparisons to similar 80s era television shows like Airwolf, Knight Rider, and Hardcastle and McCormick. We even poke fun at the short-lived television spinoff of Blue Thunder, starring Dana Carvey, Dick Butkus, and Bubba Smith. I'm Adrian Johnson. Swain and I will be the ones wearing hats with Jaffo on them as we play back the underrated 80s action film, Blue Thunder.
What brings you to air support?
Kind of like the idea of it. No guns, no kicking indoors, just quiet.
Oh, yeah.
For Frank Murphy, policing the air has its ups
Welcome to air support.
and downs.
You got a runaway.
Well, I just wanted to say, sir, that was my fault. I talked Murphy into taking us there.
You're supposed to be stupid, son. Don't abuse the privilege.
Roy Scheider is Frank Murphy, a lone wolf.
Freeze! Bozo, how many regulars come in the front door with a key?
Who's about to become a guinea pig.
I thought it was illegal to arm police helicopters. Well, that would depend on the circumstances, wouldn't it?
Columbia Pictures presents Blue Thunder, a flying arsenal that hears through walls, sees in the dark, and thinks your thoughts.
Wherever you look, the guns follow.
It was designed for war-torn countries.
One civilian dead for every 10 terrorists. That's an acceptable ratio. Unless you're one of the civilians.
It was assigned to American cities.
You're talking about crowd control from the air?
That's what this special detail is all about.
They told Murphy to test it. They didn't tell him what it was for.
A dozen of these copters and you could run the whole damn country.
Who was behind it?
Where are we?
Federal building.
Really? Hey, you want to find out what's going on in there?
We certainly do.
Wait, you gotta do me a favor. I want you to pick up a package for me.
Why they chose him?
He's totally unsuitable for our purpose.
Don't stop for anything or anybody.
Or why they changed their minds.
Turn the face over, go on fire.
They had the ultimate weapon and the perfect plan. But Murphy stole their thunder.
Man, rewatching this movie and actually kind of going back to the thrillers of the 80s and the 90s.
Yeah.
This movie really made me long for those films, man.
Oh, yes.
You have a protagonist and, the conspiracy or the conspiracy thriller or the action crime thriller. And I guess this one is kind of a little bit of both.
Yeah.
But yeah, just movies like Nighthawks. Body Double, and did you ever see FX?
Oh, yeah. And in fact, there was a sequel, FX2. Yeah.
Yeah.
With Brian Dennehy and the other dude. Yeah. FX.
Yeah. Brian Brown, was that his name?
I want to say yes. For whatever reason, that sounds correct. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. It seems like I remembered him from Cocktail and then from this, from FX. But and Someone Watch Over Me. Later on, like Sea of Love and Presumed Innocent. Pacific Heights. I think you and I even talked about maybe doing a rewatch or a playback of Revenge with Kevin Costner and Madeline Stowe and
Anthony Quinn. Yeah. Tony Scott directed. Yeah.
Yeah. Tibby. But yeah, just a bunch of them, man. As we're going to discuss as far as Roy Scheider is concerned in Blue Thunder, the kind of everyman or the wrong man or the wrong woman, in a situation where they've got to prove their innocence at any cost, and and they may have like a few kind of mild allies, but it's almost almost diehardish in a sense that they're the only ones who can actually pierce the veil and expose the conspiracy and prove their innocence. So, yeah, man, just great, man.
And I was going to add one more thing. A movie like Blue Thunder is indicative of that period of the 80s for, one thing, the vehicle as the star of the movie, as the big selling point. I mean, the early 80s especially is replete with them. Knight Rider, the van from A-Team, Airwolf, you have the DeLorean from Back to the Future. Just over and over and over again, you see where the vehicle, the Ferrari from Magnum P.I., and then on a lesser degree, that red car from Hardcastle and McCormick. Don't nobody remember that joint. I used to love that shit. But yeah, it holds so many genres, by the tail, so to speak, and that being a main one. I remember when Blue Thunder was out, I didn't see it originally until it became like an ABC Sunday night movie or something like that years later, But I remember there was a Blue Thunder toy out of the actual helicopter.
Oh, yeah.
As it was for a lot of those, vehicles like that. We may not have been old enough to watch certain movies with that stuff in it, but we could play with the toys. Yeah, so it's just really, really cool how it really straddled so many different facets, of being a thriller, being a technological thriller, being an action movie, being, just so many different things.
And like you said, playing off of that whole thing of the vehicle or some kind of a high-tech something as the center of the film. Additionally, you had later on Firefox with Clint Eastwood.
That's right. Same year, in fact. Same year.
And then also, of course, Top Gun and Iron Eagle, yo.
Oh, and Iron Eagle 2 and Iron Eagle 3. There was even Iron Eagle 4, yo.
Yes, yo. All them Iron Eagles, yo. That's crazy, man. But yeah, you're exactly right. And it seems as if there was a video game that came out shortly after this. It wasn't called Blue Thunder, but they actually used a still from the movie as part of their production art for the video games, like Thunder Blaze or...
Yes, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I think it was Thunderblade. There was a game for the Sega Genesis called Thunderblade, if I am not mistaken. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, but I recall that too. And even, and I guess we'll talk about maybe a little bit later on, the short-lived Blue Thunder TV show.
Really? I didn't realize there was a TV show. Oh, snaps. What?
Yeah, we'll get to it later. I mean, it's not worth even seeking out on YouTube, trust me.
Oh no.
But yeah, there was a Blue Thunder TV show. Maybe came out like a year or so after the film.
Yeah.
So the studio and the production were definitely trying to capitalize upon the success of the movie. But yeah, for anyone who has not seen Blue Thunder, it was released in 1983. Stars Roy Scheider, Candy Clark, Daniel Stern, Warren Oates, Malcolm McDowell.
Catch you later.
Yeah, exactly, with the finger guns, yo. And and then we had some other great character actors in the movie, like Joe Santos, Jason Bernard, and Ed Bernard. But anyway, like we're discussing, it's kind of an action conspiracy thriller. basically Roy Scheider is an air support pilot for the Los Angeles County Police Department. Although they don't call it that, they call it the Metropolitan Police Department, because LA County wouldn't give them the rights to use their name in the movie, so they called him the Metropolitan Police Department. But he works in air support, and he's training a guy, and he's asked to test this high-tech helicopter for the military. And in the process of doing so, he gets sucked into this conspiracy, and then it becomes kind of life and death at the end of the movie. But written by Dan O'Bannon, yo.
Yes.
Who we've talked about on the show before, and talking about like Alien and Total Recall.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
He wrote both of those, and he co-wrote the movie with Don Jacoby, who actually went on to write Arachnophobia and Vampires.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, they had a little bit of a pedigree, as far as that's concerned. And even the director of the film, John Badham, and you and I talked about this the other day. He directed Saturday Night Fever
and War Games,
which came out that same year, 1983.
That's right.
And then later on, he directed Stakeout with Emilio Estevez and Richard Dreyfuss. But the movie was released specifically on May 13th in 1983, and it was the #1 film in the United States the weekend that it opened. It actually knocked Flashdance out of the #1 spot. And for the 2 months it was in theaters, it made like $42 million and took in about another $21 million on video rentals, and then later on DVDs, and probably had a pretty good life after that in terms of that aftermarket, man. But you said you probably saw this on like TBS or on one of the local stations with commercial breaks and whatnot.
Yeah, it was actually ABC. I remember it specifically. I can even hear their voiceover. We now return to the ABC Sunday night movie, Blue Thunder. It was always a Sunday night movie for whatever reason. So yeah, of course it was truncated for language and definitely nudity, you know what I'm saying? But I just remember even seeing it in those little bits, when you're a young kid, especially a young boy, you're fascinated by, the cool high-tech stuff, especially if you grew up in the 80s like we did. It was like, oh, wow, man, that looks cool. And I'm telling you, boy, I turned back into like a 5 or 6 year old watching this again when they go out to like the testing grounds, right? And they're like, and here it comes now, and out of the sun comes Blue Thunder. That shit was
yes.
Oh, that shit was hard.
Yes, yo. It was like a Bill Sienkiewicz painting, with the sun behind it, almost like the Japanese flag, and and it was just baked in red and burnt umber, and then it's all in silhouette. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it had a majesty to it that was really like, okay, they're working this, they're selling this.
Oh man, did they? Oh, I was like, oh shit. And then from that point on, rewatching it again, I was all in. I was like, yeah, I'm 6 years old again. Yeah, I'm good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man. Yeah. I'm pretty sure I saw this on cable first. Probably the early days of like HBO and Showtime, and because that was really all you had back then. Maybe later on the Movie Channel, and then of course, in typical Swain fashion, I got the VHSs and put the two machines together and then taped it and had a copy of it. But
yeah,
I want to say this was one of the early ones where I really became a fan of the thriller. You know what I mean? It's not a traditional action movie where there's punching and shooting and jumping off of bridges and off of buildings and leaping through windows and that sort of thing. And it's not a crime movie like The French Connection, which Roy Scheider was actually in, or something like that. It really was like, okay, I'm the guy, I know the secret, they're out to get me, and it was very much like what's the movie with Cary Grant that Alfred Hitchcock directed? Is it North by Northwest? Where's the wrong man?
That's right. Mm-hmm.
This average, not an average guy, but this guy who gets sucked into this conspiracy, and and then it all kind of everything just, you're on the edge. Like you said, rewatching this, I was still on the edge of the couch, like, ooh.
Yeah.
Ooh. But yeah, just a fun action thriller. And of course I knew Roy Scheider from Jaws and from French Connection. And I think even after seeing this, there was no internet at the time, so there was no way to Google it. But I think somebody ended up telling me about like 52 Pickup.
Okay.
And so I went and rented. I think the guy at the video store might have told me, hey, he was in another movie you might like. And 52 Pickup was the movie, which, has a whole kind of a porn kind of a connection. And, Clarence Williams III and that weird guy in the movie. Yeah, what's going on, Slick? Let me tell you something, Slick. The really bad guy. But let's talk a little bit about some of the actors in this movie, man. As far as other things that they've been in, were you aware? Because I didn't realize it at the time. Warren Oates is a character actor who had done a ton of westerns. Oh
yes, I love Warren Oates. I love Warren Oates because I'm a big Sam Peckinpah fan, and Oates was one of his guys. From way back in like '62 with Ride the High Country, but. I knew Oates more from obviously The Wild Bunch in '69. He was great in that. And also Bring Me the Head of Alfredo Garcia in '73 or '74, which he was also good in. And that was almost like he was the alter ego of Peckinpah, people suspected, you know what I'm saying? But yeah, Oates has always been very, very solid. Like he's one of those character actors that if you put him in the cast, he's like the cleanup hitter, in baseball. Put him in that fourth slot, he gon' bring a hit every time. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. As the character of Captain Braddock in this movie, and the only thing that I had seen him in that I remembered him from was the drill instructor in Stripes.
I knew you were gonna say that. Yeah, that's what most people probably know. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's what I knew. Where he was at odds basically with Bill Murray's character. And but that's what I kind of knew him from. But as far as Candy Clark, I think you and I talked about, she was in American Graffiti.
Yeah. And
she showed up in the late 2000s in David Fincher's Zodiac.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And she was also in At Close Range, which we talked about on the Rural Crimes episode as well.
That's right. Yeah.
But also Daniel Stern, who played Lyman Good. Very, very pre-Home Alone, very pre-City Slickers. But as really great as Lyman Good, or Jaffo as
Jaffo.
As he kind of became. And then let's talk about Malcolm McDowell, yo.
Yes.
So in the movie, for people who don't know, in the movie, Malcolm McDowell is kind of like Roy Scheider's nemesis. Roy Scheider plays Frank Murphy, the air support guy, and Malcolm McDowell is a colonel in the military who Murphy served with for a while, and he's kind of like his nemesis. They don't like each other. They didn't like each other, 20 years earlier in Vietnam, and they don't like each other now working on this Blue Thunder project.
Right.
But Malcolm McDowell, we all know from A Clockwork Orange. He was actually in Caligula too. I didn't remember that. But my favorite performance by McDowell is in Time After Time.
Time After Time. Isn't that the Christopher Reeve movie?
No. Well, that was Somewhere in Time, I think.
Oh, okay. There, I get my times mixed up.
Very easy to do. No, Time After Time was a movie. It was a blending of the mythology of Jack the Ripper and the Time Machine.
Dang, okay.
And Malcolm McDowell is, I want to say he's a policeman, but he's going to the house of, let's say, an H.G. Wells type who says, hey, I've got this invention. You got to come see it. And it's a time machine. But what they don't know is that Jack the Ripper, this is in England, Jack the Ripper is in the party, and the police have chased him to the house. And when he gets it, he runs into the room, runs and jumps into the time machine, and goes forward in time. And so Malcolm McDowell chases after him, and he goes forward in time, chasing Jack the Ripper. So he's chasing Jack the Ripper around in kind of like modern day New York City. I think I have that plot pretty much right.
So it's the Terminator.
Huh?
So it's the Terminator. It's the Terminator.
It kind of is. It kind of is. Damn, you're right. Damn, you are so right. Okay. But so he's chasing Jack the Ripper in modern day New York, and while he's there, he meets Mary Steenburgen's character. They kind of fall in love. He catches Jack the Ripper. And she kind of plays the same part she played in Back to the Future 2, where at the end of the movie, she says, I'm in love with you. So she travels back in time to the 18 whatevers to be with him. In the same way that her character did in Back to the Future 2 with Doc Brown.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, wow. But anyway, they met on that movie. He and Steenburgen met on that movie and got married.
Oh, wow.
And they were married at the time that he was making Blue Thunder, as a matter of fact. So that's just kind of a weird bit of trivia that no one, should really care about, but me and you. But,
yeah.
But yeah, and she was even saying that when they were making the movie, and McDowell's character he was deathly afraid of flying. She couldn't believe he signed on to do the movie, and she said she couldn't believe that the director talked him into actually getting into a helicopter seat, and he would puke, and like he was fucked up by the whole experience. But he got through it, of course.
Yeah, but I will mention this, and I hope I'm not stepping on your toes, man.
No.
One of the most incongruent parts of the movie, okay, is Malcolm McDowell is a colonel in the U.S. military, in the U.S. Army or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. Why does he have a British accent? And he's not even trying to hide it. He's not even trying to tamp it down.
No.
At first, I was thinking, before they implicitly said, yes, he's a colonel in the United States Army, I was thinking maybe he was an attaché or a liaison with, the British RAF or something. And then when they said U.S. Army, I was like, what? Mm-mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That part was, he wasn't even doing like a Brian Cox.
Yeah.
Where Cox will be like, it's kind of British, but kind of not. You're not sure. Like, maybe he's just very proper. Maybe he's an American, but he's just very, very proper. But same here. I was like, okay, maybe he was like a British, like a cohort. They worked together, but he wasn't like under Roy Scheider. Roy Scheider's character didn't serve under this guy. That can't be, can it?
But what's funny? It starts, I don't know if it started the trend, but it continues that trend of the 80s of like, whoever is the heavy in the thriller or action movie piece, they have to have a British or Australian accent, and they have to be very implicit and proper when making threats. I shall shoot you out of the sky. That type of thing. Yeah. You see it in Commando with Bennett. You see it in Die Hard, even though it was an English actor playing a German, but still same difference. You see it replete throughout the 80s, for sure. Mm-hmm. You have to have that accent. Yeah.
Definitely that. I guess that's and even like in Star Wars, the English accents, made everybody sound more grand and sinister.
Yes.
When they had to drop those lines, so to speak. Even James Earl Jones kind of felt Britishy, even though he wasn't having you know what I'm saying? I have altered the terms of the deal. Pray I don't alter it further. He almost felt like it was like a mid-Atlantic or like a pseudo-British accent. So, this movie is, as we've discussed, is action, is crime, and it is a thriller. But it really kind of, I guess, the subtext of the movie is about the government trying to invade your privacy. Mm-hmm. In order to protect you, quote unquote. We have to invade your privacy, and to what lengths they're willing to go. This helicopter, most of the air support or all of the air support in LA County, they're not armed. They don't have weapons. They're just there to assist the police and say, hey, here's where your person is, or, to find somebody or what have you. And in this particular helicopter, Blue Thunder, which is its code name.
Right.
It's got weapons on it. It's got heat sensitive cameras that can, X-ray cameras and shit. It's got microphones that can hear through walls. It can go in silent mode and just kind of hover outside your window without you hearing it. And it's super fast. It's probably, 3 or 4 times faster than the average helicopter.
And it reminded me of like, it was a superhero almost. You know what I'm saying? Like, it almost had superpowers in a way. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe even like an Iron Man kind of a, almost like Iron Man in a way, but. A couple of things you mentioned about the incongruence incongruencies in the movie. And, this movie is definitely, like you said, it's packed with, movie magic and coincidences where it's like, hey, and it's like, okay, well, all right.
Okay, yeah, all right, yeah, we'll go with it.
Yeah, but they sell the movie so well in terms of its pacing and in terms of the dialogue and in terms of the dynamics between the characters that, pretty quickly into the film, you don't care about those inconsistencies or whatever. You're just like, whatever. I'm along for the ride, quite literally. But
yes,
a couple of things that I noticed rewatching this was, inside of the first 20 minutes or so, when when Scheider's character Murphy meets up with Daniel Stern's character Lyman Good and they get, partnered up, we as the audience members kind of want to hang out with the cranky but experienced Murphy in the same way that Lyman Good does.
That's right.
He's, his kind of seen it all, done it all attitude is really charming to a newbie, And I've had that experience, and you and I have talked about this before, where, you work with someone who has a lot of years doing something, and you almost kind of want to do like a Vulcan mind tap and just kind of suck all the stuff in, like you're eager to get everything that they have, this information. Well, this person has the knowledge. This person has the experience. They've seen it. They can teach me. They can show me. And so it's almost like like you want to devour them to a certain extent. And there's a little bit of that with Lyman Good where he's really, really charmed, by this, this kind of experienced, tenured guy, who seems a little bit cranky and maybe even, kind of losing it. I think they even imply that he has PTSD.
Yes.
But I kind of liked that, early in the movie, that's kind of what brings you along. Because then Lyman Good can ask the questions about the job and about flying and about working with the cops on the ground. And then it becomes an opportunity for, for expository exposition, for us to learn more about, what it is that they do and then how that's going to affect the rest of the movie. You know what I mean?
That's right.
But what did you think about the whole? Because this didn't this wasn't cool, man. I had forgotten about that part where they're kind of flying at night and they're peeping in that woman's window and she's nude and doing yoga, and they're like hovering outside and they were like, okay,
yeah.
Like what did you think of that? Seeing that again, did it strike you as like, wait, whoa, that's a little.
I'm of two minds of this. Yes, I know today is wrong. It's always wrong. It's always been wrong. But in the context of the 80s, man, there are so many 80s movies that are replete with that. Like, you can name them, man. I can't think of any specifics off the top of my head, but you've seen that scene before in a number of 80s movies. Like the cops would say, oh, well, she's putting on a show tonight, and they're on like a stakeout or whatnot, but they know like at this certain time every night, if they look in that window of that high rise or at this house or whatnot, oh man, she's putting on a show and whatever, fan service, if you will, for the guys in the audience. I get that.
Right. And
then the other part of me was like, dang, that's crazy. It's crazy to be reminded of how hard rated R used to be, even for a movie like this. Even in R-rated movies today, they wouldn't do something like that. You know what I'm saying? It's crazy.
Or they would do it in a different way, or there would be a consequence to the behavior. But yeah, you're right. It's like seeing it, I was just like, okay, wow, I didn't quite remember the whole peeping Tom thing. But like you said, you can go back to we mentioned another one of John Badham's the movies he directed, Stakeout.
Mm-hmm.
Where Richard Dreyfuss he's looking at Madeline Stowe in her house. And he starts kind of, lusting after her at first, and then he starts kind of falling in love with her once he actually gets to talk to her and interact with her. But he's peeping through the window through binoculars or through a telescope, and they're kind of watching her, And same thing in Porky's, looking through a hole and in the girls' shower to see naked girls taking showers together. And anyway, what were your thoughts, man, on the Vietnam flashback sequences? Because to me, those were a little silly, yo.
A bit, and just the fact that, the movie was moving along so briskly that it's almost they forgot to deepen that piece that they kept showing. Like they showed it like 2 or 3 times, and you're wondering, okay, well, what about this made Roy Scheider's character, Frank Murphy, have these flashbacks to that particular experience in his service over in Vietnam.
Right.
You keep wondering. I think a scene was needed to where Malcolm McDowell's character was saying something like, we have the prisoner or whatnot. He's not telling us what we want to know, because this is documented that helicopter interrogators would actually do this. They would capture NVA or whatnot, get the information they wanted or not needed, and they say, okay, we're done with you, and toss them out. Or they would use that as a threatening tactic for the other prisoners that they had to elicit information. And I was thinking maybe they were going to do something like that. And when they didn't, expound on that, I was like, okay, I think that's just a device just to show that, in short, he's tortured by his experience in Vietnam. He thinks he's losing it. So I was like, so that, like you said, that's one of those things where you're like, okay, all right, yeah, the movie's already going. Okay, no problem. All right,
right. And then, like, the first one or two times that they show it, you just see them throw this prisoner out of the helicopter, and it's obviously a dummy. I mean, it's, quite obviously a dummy. It's not even moving. And then the last time they show the sequence, you find out that it was Cochran, Malcolm McDowell's character, who did toss this person out, and that, and that's another reason why, Murphy and he are at odds and have been since their time serving together in Vietnam. So
yeah.
One thing I thought too, man, was Candy Clark plays Katie. When she first showed up, I wasn't sure if she was his girlfriend,
right,
his ex-wife. I didn't know what the nature of their relationship was, because it didn't seem like boyfriend, girlfriend. And then she's bringing this kid, and I'm like, okay, is this his kid? Is he in the middle of a divorce? Why is she bringing this kid over at 3 o'clock in the damn morning?
Yeah. In fact, she even asked, I believe, in the actual movie, like, "What are we, Frank?" That type of thing.
Yeah.
So it's funny, and again, that's like indicative of those 80s movies. You have the protagonist who's in some type of strained relationship, usually with their female better half. You know what I'm saying? And it's strained to the point to where, oh man, we're just not seeing eye to eye right now. But at some point in the movie, he's going to need her, to help him uncover whatever it is, or need her assistance. And in that way, they'll find some type of the beginnings of bonding or rekindling that relationship or something. You know what I'm saying?
Most definitely. And the needing her at the end of the movie is forecast pretty broadly in the beginning of the movie, where they're riding together in the car, and she makes a U-turn on a one-way street and goes back because she missed her turn. And so you realize, okay, obviously this is going to come back later, where her crazy driving is actually going to be of help to him, as opposed to, him white knuckling it, as she cuts through traffic. But speaking, I mentioned earlier about the movie doing well on video rentals, man. It was kind of cool to see the huge 3/4-inch tapes.
Yeah,
that the news stations used to use back in the day. Looked like a damn Merriam-Webster's dictionary, this big fat, tape, and
yes.
And they had that in the helicopter, for, with the data and all that. And then Lyman Good steals it. And the thing that I was wondering about was, he said, he calls Frank and he leaves Frank this message, and Frank actually gets the message posthumously, because Lyman Good has been killed at that point.
Right.
And he says, I didn't want to bring it back to my house, so I hid it. And I'm thinking, okay, where did he hide it? In a dumpster behind, the drive-in I go to. I think they emptied the trash can on Thursday, so you got to go get it today. God damn, man.
I was just like, God, I thought the same thing. I was like, that's real specific.
Yes.
Dang.
And random as F, I was like, but I guess, he couldn't leave it like in a locker at the bus station and then get the key to anybody in time. So he was just on his way home, so he just stops off, ditches it, goes and gets his groceries.
Yeah.
And then, of course, when he comes in his house, that's when the bad guys are waiting on him, and they get him. And what did you think about that whole sequence there? Because I thought that was well done, in the sense of, it was, when the bad guys captured Lyman Good, it was riveting.
Mm-hmm.
They broke his finger. You were like, okay, these guys are not playing.
Mean business, yeah.
And even his attempt to escape, was like, it's like, oh my God, he might actually get away, with the handcuffs and everything. But what did you think about that whole sequence and how it ended with the, as it ended?
Yeah, that's one of those things, to where those and I hate to say classic because, these movies aren't that old. I mean, they're approaching 40 years old, obviously.
Right.
But, the movies, like the thrillers and stuff of like the 80s, when they were directed by solid directors who aren't household names, but they made great films like John Badham, Andrew Davis. There's a guy named Bruce Malmuth who directed Nighthawks. Mm-hmm. Just directors like that who knew how to direct scenes like this. Like when he comes in, Badham really has a handle on, this type of shady dealing. Like he's in his apartment, he comes in and they kind of jump him and they got him cornered. They kind of hem him up and everything. Where's the tape? Where's this and that? Badham in particular really excels at that, as you can see in like War Games and movies like that. Mm-hmm. To where there's a perceived threat that is real. No mustache twirling, it's really more like these are toughs. These are actual toughs who look like they will hurt you if you don't give them what they want. So everything about the filming of the scene, the lighting of the scene, the actual performances in that just really work. And as far as his getaway, it made it seem believable because we like Lyman Good. You know what I'm saying? And it's something that we would try to do as well if we were in his shoes. Right. So during that whole thing, we're rooting for him. Get away, just get away. And he's making his way down the street and everything. And, he bumps into, there's always a bicyclist coming by in every 80s movie that they're almost going to get away. And poof. And then that creepy looking guy who's like creepy looking on purpose drives that old beat up beater of a car, that lemon of a car, that same nondescript car that you've seen in every episode of A-Team, Rockford Files,
Starsky and Hutch,
Hunter. Just runs him over, yo. It's like, dang, and kept going.
Yep.
I was like, God, dang, yeah, man, no remorse. Just,
it was rough too, and the way they shot it, he's running. He bumps it. He trips over the person on the bike. So he's on his knees. He gets up. He turns around. You see the headlights coming his way, and his face just kind of goes blank, like he's accepted his fate. Right. And the dude just runs his ass up. and that's it. And it was at that point when Murphy, he comes to the scene and he sees them zipping Lyman Good up in the bag. Of course, again, more movie magic. He just happens to show up as they're zipping Lyman Good up. And then he realizes, okay, this is truly life and death, and I've got to take matters in my own hands in order to clear my name.
Right, and in fact, it's a callback to our previous episode as far as like the mentor. Murphy would be the mentor, obviously, to Lyman Good, and sometimes when it's in that type of relationship, the mentor has to die so that the mentee or the student can go forward. In this case, though, the student dies to show the mentor, yes, this is very serious now, okay? They're willing to kill this young dude to get at you.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So it's real now,
Yeah, it definitely is. It definitely was. And I didn't even think about it in terms of the mentor-mentee relationship as it relates back to our previous discussion, but you're definitely right. The ending, man, So here's the thing. Throughout the course of the movie, Scheider's character, Frank Murphy, he's got a watch with a timer on it, and he closes his eyes and sets the timer, and he tries to count to 20 or 30 or whatever, because he had heard that, if one of the signs that someone is losing it is if they close their eyes and try to count to 20 seconds or 30 seconds, they don't know the difference between 5 seconds and 20 seconds or 5 seconds and 30 seconds. And that their timing will be way, way off. So he's doing this constantly throughout the course of the movie to try to check himself to see if he actually is going crazy or losing it, and maybe suffering from some PTSD from his days in Vietnam. But when he leaves the chopper on the train tracks, I was like, well, maybe he is crazy, because that was some crazy shit.
No, but I understood why he did it. It's like, man. It's like one of those classic tropes of this weapon will never be used again for evil. Yeah. That type of thing. It's like breaking the sword over your knee. This sword has been used to cause evil throughout the land. Psh-ching! Is now destroyed. You know, that type of thing. And I love that. And obviously, the very end has the classic 80s freeze frame. And for some reason, though.
Oh, yeah, yo, yeah.
Can I also mention this about the ending, too? I don't know what it is about those early 80s techno thrillers, and I don't know about you, but that synthy mixed with some type of an orchestral score, that works for me. So when he's leaving and the train is, wrecked, Blue Thunder has destroyed it, and it has that freeze frame, and it kind of looks like almost like it's being monitored. Not him being monitored, but like the freeze frame almost turns to like a monitored display, and you see like, the overlay of like, the computer matrix lettering, Blue Thunder, starring Roy Scheider, that type of thing. I was a sucker for that. I was like, man, that just got me like right here. Just like, that works, man. And then the synthy score comes up, like, yeah.
I think you're right about that, and I think maybe Dwight might have brought this up on a previous conversation we were having about how movies in the 80s would end in the freeze frame at the end of the film. It would just lock in, and that would be the last thing that you saw. But I just thought it was crazy because it's like, okay, he could have derailed the train and killed everybody on that train, yo. He's like leaving this super, techno helicopter. I was just like, it just seemed weird to me. Definitely a weird choice. But I get what you're saying. Is like, again, Murphy throughout the course of the movie is like, yeah, they're in everybody's privacy, and and so you kind of know where the movie is going before it actually gets to that particular point. But also too, yeah, man, with the synthy kind of orchestral music scores.
Yes.
A lot of that those 80s movies, I want to say To Live and Die in LA had some of that.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely John Carpenter's films, starting back in the 70s all the way into the 80s.
Oh, yeah.
Of course, and he was the one who's actually doing that. And then Risky Business in the 80s as well. The soundtrack was done by I believe the band was called Tangerine Dream.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Very kind of synthy and mellow and kind of chilled out.
Yeah, they also did Thief as well. Which had that same type of synthy score. Oh yeah.
Yeah. And there was a lot of that in there. And there was a lot of it too in Manhunter, another Michael Mann movie, Thief and Manhunter. But
oh yeah.
As far as Roy Scheider is concerned, man, because I know you wanted to talk a little bit about his acting career and him as the prototypical, the everyman, he's good looking, but he's not super handsome. He's smart, but he's not the smartest guy in the room. And he can probably throw hands, but he's not like, he's not like Rambo, or he's not like, an Arnold Schwarzenegger character, or, he's not someone who's going to do martial arts. He's just this kind of average, above average guy, but an average guy nonetheless, right?
Yeah, he's the type of guy, and I've worked with a couple of people, and you probably have, a couple of guys like him, to where he's quiet, he has a quiet confidence. He's professional, he knows what he's doing. If you ask him a question, he's going to answer it for you, in an unassuming way. But if his hand is forced in terms of a situation really needing to be handled, I don't mean a violent situation or anything, but in a professional setting, he's going to know what to do to take care of it. And that's the sense that I get from Scheider. I think I called him, he was like the Humphrey Bogart of the 80s, the late 70s and the 80s.
Oh.
He has this very sad kind of face, but so relatable, and so unassuming. You know what I'm saying? Like, all those roles that you've seen him in, he's not transformative, but he takes the role enough to where it works, and he seems like a different character every time. You know what I'm saying? And he's just very appealing. I can see why he remained a big box office attraction, throughout that whole period. Yeah.
Yeah, and Roy Scheider, of course, I believe Jaws was the first time I ever saw him in anything.
Okay.
And then I saw him in French Connection after that.
Mm-hmm.
52 Pickup I mentioned.
Yeah, he was excellent in Sorcerer,
Oh, yeah, and Sorcerer, a great crime thriller from set over in, was it South America?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, South America back in the 70s. He was in, I think I vaguely remember him in Marathon Man.
Oh, yes. Yeah, he was in there briefly. Mm-hmm.
But the last thing I saw him in that I really liked, and he didn't have a lot to do in the movie, was he was in that movie I told you about, Romeo is Bleeding.
Okay.
Yeah, which is a good movie to check out. Kind of weird and freaky in some ways. But Scheider, I didn't realize it. He was the big draw for this film. Like, he was the star power name other than the helicopter itself, Blue Thunder. He was the reason why the movie got greenlit, because it was coming off of 2 Jaws movies that were both successful.
Yeah.
And he had been nominated for an Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor for French Connection. He at the time was someone who was, he was a big star. He wasn't Robert Redford or Paul Newman big star, but he was a big star back in those days.
Yeah.
But as far as some trivia, and I've mentioned a couple of things, the LA County wouldn't let them use their name in the movie, even though it's shot. They reference the canyon and the bridge in LA and all the neighborhoods.
Yes, and he flies past LA County headquarters, police headquarters. That one building, you know what it is. Yeah.
Yeah, but they wouldn't let them use the name, so they referred to their to the police department as the Metropolitan Police Department, and he was in the Astro Division as opposed to Air Support or whatever LA County really calls it. Yeah. And I mentioned Malcolm McDowell was terrified of flying, and he got sick. Mary Steenburgen, she said, she like I said, she said she couldn't even believe that they got him to do this movie. Warren Oates died as this movie was in post-production, and so they dedicated it to him. And as mentioned earlier, he was in a ton of westerns and a character actor who'd been around since I think the 50s.
Yes.
By the time he showed up in this and in Stripes but yeah, they ended up dedicating the film to the late Warren Oates.
And one other small thing to add in there, just real quick. The same year that Warren Oates died, it's the same year, I believe, that Sam Peckinpah died. So there's that Oates and Peckinpah connection there.
Wow.
I think Peckinpah's last film was The Osterman Weekend, also in 1983. So they died that same year. So it's crazy how that ended up working out,
Yeah, longtime collaborators who who ended up passing in the same year. But one last bit of trivia that I uncovered was Mario Machado.
Okay.
He plays the TV reporter in the movie, but he himself was a real life TV reporter, and he's playing himself in the film. But if you look at his IMDb, Mario Machado has played a TV reporter in Brian's Song. He played a TV reporter in RoboCop.
Mm-hmm.
He played a TV reporter in Scarface, which also came out the same year, if I'm not mistaken, right?
That's right. You're correct.
1983. And he played a TV reporter in Rocky III.
Yes. He
has been in so many movies playing basically a version of himself, but apparently he was a TV reporter and then kind of became an actor, quote unquote actor, along the way.
It's funny you mentioned that aspect, man, because there are a lot of, in the 80s, a lot of like movies, mostly, and I'll say it, mostly lower budget movies that use like actual television reporters.
Mm-hmm.
Like I know down here, there was a movie filmed in 85 called Invasion USA with Chuck Norris.
Mm-hmm.
And they actually used 2 television reporters from here in the Atlanta area on camera, Monica Kaufman and John Pruitt.
Oh.
It was like,
oh, wow. Really?
Holy crap. Even as a kid, I was like, dang, they had a Cannon movie? Oh, shit. But it's funny.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it is. And one of the television reporters as well, he also played a television reporter in The Terminator, like that following year. I forget if it was Machado or there was another guy that was on the screen too. It was like, he also played a television reporter in Terminator.
Yeah. You know what's really funny is you can always tell if it's a real reporter or a real anchor person versus an actor playing one of them. Because, when they go into that TV reporter talk with the gestures, the hand gestures, and the certain cadence and a certain way that they deliver the news and deliver the story, you can tell people who have been seasoned in doing that. it just comes off differently. But I can always tell when it's just an actor who's playing a reporter or an anchor person, as opposed to someone who has real chops.
You're right.
Doing the job. But some other movies that came out in 1983, a few of them we hadn't discussed. The Outsiders came out in 83. National Lampoon's Vacation.
Yeah.
Risky Business, again, came out in 1983. The Dead Zone with Christopher Walken, which is another one of my favorites. Trading Places came out in 1983. Videodrome, if you remember Videodrome.
Yep.
The Superman 3, the odious Superman 3 came out in 1983. Yeah, I'm wiping the sweat off my face too, man. Yeah. So starting to lose it there. Return of the Jedi, of course. Sean Penn's Bad Boys.
Yes, which eventually at some point we got to get to, because I know you and I are huge fans of that movie, for sure.
Yeah, I love that movie. And I mean, I don't know if it'll be separate or if we'll probably do a separate episode, but it'll definitely be included when we do like a prison movies.
Sure will.
Have a prison movies conversation.
Bet on it.
But yeah, just last but not least, well, no, actually last and least, the Blue Thunder TV show, I think ran in 1984.
Yeah.
Who was in that?
Oh no. Why am I scared? I'm scared to even know who you go even say was in it, Joe.
So, I know Dana Carvey was in it.
What?
Dana Carvey was Jaffo.
Okay.
He was Jaffo.
I can see that. I thought he was going to be Frank Murphy. Oh, hell no.
No. It was some other guy who was Frank Murphy, but he was in it. Dick Butkus was in it.
Okay, I'll give you that. I like Dick Butkus, yeah. All right.
And Bubba Smith, the football player turned actor.
Yes. Okay.
There we go. There we go. So, you had some non-actors, and then Dana Carvey, who was probably more of a stand-up than he was a comedic actor at that point. But it wasn't very good. It was definitely not very good. And fell right in with, the movies and TV shows that you talked about. Knight Rider, Magnum P.I., Airwolf, Iron Eagle.
Yeah.
And then what was it? McCormick?
Hardcastle and McCormick. Put some respect on it.
Hardcastle and McCormick. Yeah, with the what was it, the judge and the race car driver?
Yeah, the felon who was a race car driver, yeah. And he helped him on the cases that fell through the cracks.
What was up with that name? Dude's name was Skid McCormick. Skid. Which has a whole different, different vibe today with Skid Mark McCormick.
Exactly.
Like, come on. Come on, man. But, anyway, that was definitely the time. And you're right, as far as the, as you mentioned earlier in the conversation, the focus on vehicles and the vehicle, like Kit was the star of Knight Rider.
Of course. It wasn't David Hasselhoff. It was Kit. Yeah.
Yeah, we were tuning in every week to see Kit and hear Kit say, Michael. Yeah. But what were you going to say? I'm sorry, man.
I was going to say, I just want to add this one last thing to it, if I could. Just in terms of, in the film's third act, the choreography and the cinematography of those flight are incredible and still hold up. They're amazing. They're fantastic. Like we mentioned earlier in the episode, just about, them using like the landmarks around the city, around quote unquote Los Angeles.
Yeah.
But yeah, they go to all the familiar hunts that you've seen in hundreds of movies to this very day. The LA River, that one bridge, I forget what street it is, but it's a very specific bridge, over the LA River and stuff like that. And just the cat and mouse chase that was going on, and the great use of like analog special effects with the real footage. There was rear screen projection. All of it blended pretty well, even though to our trained eyes here in the 21st century, we could tell the difference. But like you said, at that point in the movie, you didn't care. You know what I'm saying? It was like, this is just exciting, it's entertaining. And the one part that we both agreed on is when the cops have pulled over Candy Clark's character, you know, as she's trying to make her way to the TV station with the tape, and she's on that bridge, and she's like, no, you gotta let me go. I gotta go. And the cop's like, no, you need to stay right here. You're not going nowhere. And then Blue Thunder just comes up over the edge of the bridge. You just hear like the turbines whining. That was so badass. And
yeah, yo.
That's the type of crowd-pleasing moments that were just so genuine in a lot of those 80s movies. I could sense that would be the part in the movie in the theater where the crowd would be like, yeah, all right, you know, yeah.
Yeah. It comes up over the. It's like a landscape shot.
Yes.
You just see it come up over the edge of the bridge, like a bat or something, just kind of, you know, hovering. Yeah, you're right, man. You're right. And the other thing too is I think if they had done a movie like that today, which there actually was talk of doing a reboot of it using a drone instead of an actual helicopter. You know, a lot of that is going to be CGI. A lot of that is going to be, you know, created, you know, in as a VFX, as opposed to you know, shooting it practically.
Yeah.
And you have to give, like you said, in terms of the air choreography, if you will, you have to give John Badham credit because it's like with artwork. A lot of times with artwork, if we see a bowl of fruit or a landscape or some kind of a life drawing in a natural setting where there aren't human beings in the picture, sometimes we kind of get bored with that. You know, the image doesn't connect unless there's a person in there. You know, and so in this particular movie, Badham, you know, he's got to shoot basically shots of helicopters swooping and chasing each other. He knows he's only going to use 5 seconds, 3 seconds, 10 seconds to stitch it all together, but he's got to know in his mind he's got the shot and that it's going to be exciting when I put it together. That's easier to do if you got two guys fighting and jumping through a window and falling onto the top of a car, and then they fall out and roll into the street, and then a truck comes and they almost get hit by a truck. That's easy to do with human beings because we've seen that before and we know how that can be exciting and how that can be, you know, like a gripping kind of a situation.
Yeah.
But, you know, he just had to shoot machines flying through the air and make it feel like a badass fist fight or a car chase or somebody chasing somebody on a motorcycle or the Terminator chasing Sarah Connor in an 18-wheeler. He had to make it feel like that, you know, and he did a great job of it, man. It's a really, really fun film as it relates to that, and he pulled it off, you know, brilliantly, I think.
That concludes this episode of Sidebar Forever, hosted by Dwight Clark, Swain Hunt, and Adrian Johnson. You can find us online at sidebarforever.com. Any emails or questions can be directed to us at sidebarforever@gmail.com. And also, subscribe to us on social media. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram.